Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Community Science Saturday with the Natural History Society of Maryland. That's a lot of S's this morning on Saturday. We're so happy to have you here to learn about the Community Collaborative Rain, Hail, and Snow Network with Bradley Lear, who has been a classroom teacher for a long while, and also
Somebody's phone's ringing.
yep, that's mine, and also involved in meteorology through forecast and other locations. Um, we're trying to serve as a conduit and a pipeline to let you know what community science projects are out there so that you can take an active role in the scientific process and moving science forward, which is very, very exciting. The data that we collect through these programs is so important to science and scientific research. As we all know, scientists aren't the most well-funded folks out there, so here's our opportunity to crowdsource scientific research. And with that, I'm going to turn it over and I'll mute myself to Brad, who's going to be talking to us about the Community Collaborative Rain, Hail, and Snow Network.
Thank you. Can you hear me? Yes. All righty. This is a talk sponsored, as she said, and I'd like to thank Bronwyn and the Maryland Natural History Society. You can find them at this website right here. CoCoRaHS. What in the world is that? Let's do a little history. In Colorado, near Fort Collins on July 28, 1997, a thunderstorm dumped about 2 inches of rain on Fort Collins, home of Colorado State University. The bad news is while 2 inches of rain is significant, 12 miles away on the other side of a ridge, a amount of rainfall quite destructive fell, 14 and a half inches of rain in 31 hours. As you can see here, it washed a train off its tracks. It killed approximately 6 people and caused millions of dollars in damage. And the people at Colorado State came to the conclusion is here was a storm just 12 air miles away, and they didn't know about it. So the Climate Center at Colorado State, thanks to thanks to part of the Fort Collins flood a year earlier, began to do studies of rain. CoCoRaHS now includes about 20,000 volunteers in the Northern Hemisphere. These are just ordinary, everyday folks, young, old, retired, not retired. In the formative years, CoCoRaHS was actually just 3 high school volunteers, and it was called the Colorado Collaborative Rain, Hail, and Snow Network. But as it expanded to nearby states, first being Wyoming and right on up the line, it became the Community Collaborative Rain, Hail, and Snow Network. I got involved about 2004 or so when I had gone to a weather conference at Baltimore, Washington International Airport, and met a young man who lived not far from me physically in Baltimore County, who was a professional meteorologist for National Weather Service, who was in charge of this. And I wound up becoming the coordinator for Baltimore County, Baltimore City, and Harford County. However, when you get my email address later and you have any questions, I don't care where you live, you got any questions, please feel free to email me. Here, these pages are from the CoCoRaHS homepage. It's a grassroots, you can read this, nonprofit community made of volunteers. We take just precipitation. They don't care about wind or temperature or anything else. All right. Here's a 13-year-old map, and you can see the states that are actually involved back then. The cross-hatching down here shows that they're soon to be included. Well, here's a couple days ago. So you can see there are a lot of stations that are signed on now. All of the United States, all 50 states, including the US Virgin Islands, Canada, and the Bahamas, now belong. The main tool that you need is a 4-inch rain gauge. This consists of an outer cylinder, a funnel, and an inner cylinder. This particular rain gauge shows quite a lot of rain, but I'll talk about that in a moment. You need to have one of these, and here's 2 websites that the CoCoRaHS website will tell you about. Weather Your Way. Right now, the gauges are on sale for $38, and Ambient Weather. And right now, today, they're selling for about $48. Hey, Mr. Brad, I've got a weather station that I got for Christmas. It has a rain gauge. Why can't I use that? Well, quite unprofessionally, they stink. There aren't any electronic rain gauges that work and show consistency. I have 2 weather stations, an old one and a new one. They have rain gauges, and they're never even close to actually going out and measuring. So if you want to do this, invest the money in the 4-inch rain gauge. These are 4 main organizations that sponsor and work with CoCoRaHS. Wyoming, which was first on board, National Weather Service, NOAA, and of course, Colorado State University in Fort Collins. Speaking of rain, if you live within the sound of my voice, you probably got a lot of rain last night. And you know this by looking at this map. Now, a little aside here. Weather data is garnished by hand by mostly satellites. Everybody gets the same data from the satellites. National Weather Service, Kansas, US Army, wherever. It's what they do with those numbers that make it tick. The bad news is, you watch a television program and look at the weather person, the map you see could be 45 minutes to an hour old. This map you're looking at that I went back and freeze from last night, approximately 9 o'clock, I am here. History is here, natural history is here. This came from an outfit called the College of DuPage. College of DuPage is a 2-year meteorological school outside of Chicago. It is considered to be one of the finest meteorology schools in the world. Now, here's why I brought this up. They take the same numbers that WJZ and WBAL and US Army and everybody, NOAA gets, and they crunch it and they come up with a map. This map, when it came out last night, I went back in time and got it this morning. This map was never and is never more than 6 minutes old. It automatically updates itself every 6 minutes. Now, here's the cool part. It's free. Now, on my website, which I'll bore you with in a minute, for a minute, I could get it to update every 3 minutes, but then I have to pay for it. And since my website's free, I ain't doing it. Now, talking, take 2. A little bit of talk about the color. The way these maps work is the radar measures the height of the clouds. The higher the cloud, the harder the rain, the greater the rain. So the other side of the coin is the higher the cloud, the colder the cloud. Well, why are they using orange and red to show cold? That's because all of the computer programs that show weather maps have a code that takes the cold temperatures and makes them warm colors, vis-a-vis red, orange, and yellow. Because in Western civilization, we associate red, orange, and yellow with danger, and blue and green with safety. So that all the computer programs automatically flip the colors. So this is the coldest air right here in what we here in Maryland know as Anne Arundel County. Therefore, the highest clouds, therefore the heaviest rain. I hope that made sense. Now, where can you get this for free? You go to my website for free. Turp Guy Weather and Stuff, and you go to weather links. This page here. You'll get this page right here, and it'll go down to NexRad sites. NexRad is next generation radar for College of DuPage. The tutorial is below. And again, that's free. There's my weather blog, turpguyweather.blogspot.com. It's free. I update it at least twice a day, unless there's something happening like a hurricane or a, winter storm. And I will never try to sell you anything. And there's no clickbait, if you know what clickbait is. Okay. So end of advertisement. I have ones of people who use this. Now, the good news is I volunteer at a local hospital, and all the nurses and doctors have this because they want to know if they need to bring an overnight bag when they come to work. All right, what's the deal on CoCoRaHS? Rain, hail, snow. That's all we measure. As a matter of fact, here in Maryland, I'll talk about this. We don't do hail. That's a Western phenomena that's worth measuring. Now, all of these pages are from the tutorial section of the CoCoRaHS. Now, I have in the past done local teaching groups, so you need to be trained. Basically, you can get trained online. It's an excellent tutorial program. We talked about the 4-inch diameter high capacity rain gauges. We don't need this in the state of Maryland or Pennsylvania or Virginia because they don't collect hail data here. Again, from the CoCoRaHS website, our aim is to provide the highest quality data for natural resources, education, and research applications. Here are the 5 important reasons for CoCoRaHS. 1, precipitation varies, highly variable, and it's never the same. I live near what's called the geological formation of the fall line, and a classic joke in my household is when a storm's coming, I tell my lovely bride, well, the front yard's going to get rain and the backyard's going to get snow. Not really, but that's how close we are. Here's the rain gauges, measurements of snow, not always accurate, but again, we are not collecting hail data here. As mentioned earlier, here's the Fort Collins, Colorado headlines of that day back in 1997, 5 deaths confirmed, okay? Who uses CoCoRaHS data? The list is almost endless, but I want to take a second and point out this one. Probably about 10 years ago, I was concerned, why am I doing this? Is anybody reading this? And on a post-it board with CoCoRaHS, I said, are any pro-Mets meteorologists using this data? In 20 minutes, I got 3 pro-Mets meteorologists emailing me, 1 from Delaware and 2 from New Jersey, who say they read it every day. So here's talking about community science. You're a part of this. And if I didn't mention before, I mentioned it now, we have over 20,000 volunteers who send in the data daily. Who sponsors? The usual: NOAA, Colorado, U.S. Department of Agriculture, Reclamation, so on. Okay. This is part of the tutorial. What do we need from you? Okay. Sign me up, probably online. Accurate maps. Now, it says just having your address may not be good enough. Since this tutorial was made, when you sign up, there's a link. I'll talk about that in a second. The link tells you your exact longitude, latitude, down to the second. Commitment to collect data and spam blocking off so you can get CoCoRaHS emails. What you will need before you participate. Here we go. Slideshow, because every drop counts. You want to study and learn about storms. You're going to have training. I talked about that a moment ago. And for those of you who are interested and you're not in Baltimore County or City or Harford County, feel free to email me and I'll answer any questions you have. Now, when you get your station number, this is issued by state, county, and the number of the station. This guy or this person is station number 368. Now, here's the cool part. What's your name? Your name is how many miles and in what direction you are from the nearest post office. So they'll look on the longitude and latitude and find the nearest post office to you and how many miles you are in what direction, and that is your station name. And your station number and station name are unique. Okay, we talked about the 4-inch rain gauge in a good location. I want to go back. I didn't mean to hit that. You're going to have an ID and a password to enter your data. Don't need a hail pad. Don't need a hail pad for Middle Atlantic, but you absolutely have to have some kind of smartphone or internet connection to send your data in. All right, part of the tutorial, where do you place your gauge? Location, 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 just like real estate. All right, if you live out in a prairie, it's not a problem. But the worst place to put your rain gauge is in the box it came in. Or collect it off your roof, not a good idea. You want to stay away from trees, even though it's convenient. Stay away from your porches and overhangs. It might be convenient, but it's too close to the house. Stay away from any sprinklers that are either agricultural or local. You want steep slopes, and again, nobody really has this in your backyard. Dogs, birds, mountain lions. Yes, back in the beginning of CoCoRaHS, they actually had reports in Wyoming and Colorado of mountain lions coming and upsetting the equipment. I don't think we have that problem here. All right, again, some physics. You don't want to put it too close to a fence because of the wind will then put more fluid, more water into the rain gauge. Optimally, you live on a 500-acre farm and you can stick it out on a fence post. But more importantly, if you just have a small yard, stick it as far away as you can, twice as far from obstacles as they are high. So if you have a tree that's 80 feet tall, put the rain gauge 160 feet away. And if you're in a developed area, try to get as far away from obstacles as they are high. For example, in the backyard, try to keep away from the trees. All right, if you have hundreds of acres, 2 feet above the ground is fine, unless you own cattle. But develop 5 feet is a good place. Now, when you measure your rainfall, allegedly you go at 7 o'clock a.m., 0700 local time, but anywhere between 5 and 9 is okay. Not everybody can get out there whenever. All right, now you want to read it and be as accurately and consistent as possible. Here's some situations you might encounter. Now here's the outer cylinder, the inner cylinder, and the funnel. See where the water is? Okay, some of you might remember from your science class the phenomena of a meniscus. This plastic graduated cylinders don't have a meniscus. You might not have remembered that. And so here it's 0.50, not 50, not 0.05, but 0.50 inches, and that's what you report. Now, wow, heavy rain, good rain, 1 inch. This inner tube holds 1 inch. After that, it spills over, and I'll talk about that in just a second. This is a science thing. This was something I taught for all the years I taught. When you write a decimal, put the 0. Put the 0. Now, nobody does that, okay? Because if you put that 0 there, that tells the reader that that decimal belongs, okay? If it just says 0.40, The guy could have dropped the pencil, you know, or it was a piece of ink off the Xerox machine. So 0.40. Now, when you get over an inch, it'll spill over and fill the bottom up. The entire outer cylinder can hold 11 inches of water. That's a lot. And of course, it's kind of, you read the first on the inner cylinder, pour it out, make sure you write it down, then use the funnel and the large cylinder to pour the remainder into the inner tube. And then continue to write them down. So here you have an inch plus 970, 3.77 inches. So write it down, and that would be what you would send to CoCoRaHS. We are not real concerned with hail. You get hail, mention it in the comments. You got half-inch hail, or in this case 2, that's a lot for here. You know, mention that in the comments too. Snow. Okay. We don't tend to see things like this around where we live. This is Western, but still we get snow. Now, if you think snow's coming, take out the inner tube from the outer tube and take out the funnel, because otherwise the snow will fill this up and clog it. I myself leave the inner tube and the funnel off all winter. Like this morning, I had to go out with the inner tube and a funnel and measure what fell, which was 1-point-something inches last night. Now, how do you measure snow? From the gauge, from a core sample. Come out and say, holy cow, look at this, what do I do? Well, sometimes because you're in a, excuse me, you have a accumulation of snow on the rim. Take your snow swatter and gently tap on the top of the gauge. There's no such thing as a snow swatter. This is a fly swatter. And you just smash it down, and what it'll do is it'll drop it into the big cylinder here. Then you're going to, if you can't measure exactly because of the wind, you take a core sample. You take the inverted giant cylinder, large cylinder, find a representative location on your property, not have drifted, melted, or blown snow, shove it in, then use your snow swatter to cover it, pick it up, flip it over, and bring it inside to melt. Sometimes the wet snow, you can just shove this in like a cookie cutter and it'll come out. You can measure a depth right there down to the grass or your snowboard. Now, you want to sit around all day waiting for it to melt, or you want to get a measurement already? Hot water, write it down, inner tube, inner graduate tube. Make sure you got the exact amount of water you're putting in, pour it in, and it'll melt. Then, after this sample completely melts, you measure it again with the inner cylinder and measure straight on, always look straight on, to 1/100 of an inch, and don't forget to subtract the water that you added. You record your measurement. People don't mail these in, we do it online. You're going to go online and do it, okay? Now, snow will melt, snow will settle. So you try to get out there as soon as you can to measure the depth of the snow, okay? Sometimes, like the snowstorm we had a few weeks ago, it snowed and it rained. So there was no bother even mentioning the depth of the snow because it was all packed down. All right. It's no harder than using a meter stick, or in this case, a yardstick. Now, a snowboard is a board you have in the yard where you can take the snow, the ruler, thunk, and you know how deep it is. I just use the hard frozen ground. All righty. See, near a tree, he's measured 3 inches of snow, but out in the yard, 6.5. So you try to stay away from trees and buildings. All right, I have a place in my backyard on my patio that if we got 6 inches of snow, the patio will say 22 because it blows off the roof. So you got to be careful. And again, try to measure straight on. You don't ever measure at an angle, measure straight on. Of course, it might require you getting down your hands and knees. Here's the snowboard, the idea being that once you measure the snow, you take it up, clean it off, put it back on top of the snow. So the next time, and put a stick in the ground so you know where it is. So the next time you get a snowstorm, you know, you can measure from there. All righty. All right, what about the snow's melting? Because they'll ask you how much snow's on the ground, how much new, how much is old. All right, what you do is take an average. In this case, 2 inches where the snow is, 1 inch where it's bare, and so the average will be 1 inch. Now, if more than half of the ground is bare, report T for trace. Excuse me. Mention the range of your depth in comments. All right, freezing rain. Freezing rain is not snow, it's freezing rain. So you report 0 for new snow, but then you take this inside and melt it and get liquid measurement, making sure that the stuff on the outside doesn't get on the inside. Here's the website. Once you join, you'll be told to log in. You'll create a username and your own password. You'll then click on the daily precipitation report and you'll enter it. The default observation time will say 7 a.m. You can change that if you're late or early. Record your measurements to the hundredths and hit submit data. And it goes to Fort Collins, it goes to the National Weather Service, and you can look up on a map where it is. Excuse me. This map, of course, is Maryland, and this is my county, Harford. And on this particular day, that's me. Got a lot of rain. You can see how it varies. Depends on hills and stuff. All right, some FAQs. Other reports, we don't do hail. Intense precipitation. Let's say you look out the window and a thunderstorm hits at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. You watch the time. 3 hours, 3:40, 40 minutes later, it stops raining. You go out and check your rain gauge. If it's over a half an inch, they would like you to do an intense precipitation report. I'll tell you where it's on your sign-in. It'll tell you that the storm started here, ended there. It'll ask about flooding. Normally the answer is, you know, puddles in the road. All right. Zeros. It's vitally important that if you walk out and there's been no precipitation, you file a report that says 0, because 0 is just as important as having rain. I went to see grandma because the COVID pandemic was over and I missed 3 days. I don't know how much fell on which day. There's a section for multi-day precipitation. And of course, your daily precipitation report, which you do every day. Don't have to be home, no. Report when you're able, okay? And just talked about the multi-day. I don't have a good place to put my gauge. Do your best. Give it your best shot. All righty? We're not worried about hail. Oh, it was a heavy dew. Do I rate? No, dew is not precipitation, but you may measure dew in your comments. Say we get 3/1 of an inch of dew, don't enter it as rainfall. How long is my commitment to CoCoRaHS? Well, back when they made this website, they say at least 1 season, but the longer you contribute, the more valuable the data becomes. And like I said, I've been doing it for 13 or 14 years now. Thanks for joining. You can find out more about CoCoRaHS Network by visiting the website or speaking with your local coordinator. I might not be your local coordinator, but please feel free to email me, okay, or CoCoRaHS. And the more people we got, the better we are. Now, Bronwyn, anybody has any questions?
Well, why don't you go ahead and thank you, Brad. You can go ahead and stop sharing, and we can all come back together as people.
I had to show this one.
Cuckoo for CoCoRaHS. I was wondering how you pronounce that acronym, so I'm glad I know that now.
CoCoRaHS, Community Collaborative Rain, Hail, and Snow. Okay, anybody have any questions?
All right, that was wonderful. We're
Actually,
Thank
I
you.
have a question. So, how do you maintain your rain gauge?
And by maintain, what do you mean?
Like, how often do we have to clean it?
When it gets dirty. Don't laugh. In the fall, it gets a lot of crud from leaves and stuff. I scrub it out. I myself have 4, but don't ask why. It's just like when it snows, I'll just walk out and swap and bring it inside. You need a long scrub brush to get it down inside the graduate, the inner tube. And if that doesn't work, just shove a wet paper towel down there. Make sure you have something to pull it back out again. Particularly in the summer, you'll get a little dampness and water in there, and there'll be an algae buildup. Okay, so you don't have to clean that often, but you can clean it up with the algae. Where are you? Where do you all live? What county? Or
We live in Hartford County.
okay, so do I. So if you're interested, I'd be your coordinator. Contact me. You got my email. Oh, by the way, if you didn't get my email,
Okay.
anybody listening, you go to CoCoRaHS and it talks about area coordinators, and I'll be in there. Thank you for asking. Thank you for coming. Anybody else?
I have a question. How many volunteers do we have in Maryland that are collecting data now?
Hundreds. I can't give you an exact number because there's been people that came to my meeting, bought the rain gauge, and then did it for 2 weeks because it was an Eagle Scout project. So they're trying to go through in Colorado and trying to find out if people are still, doing this. And sadly, some have passed on. So
Well, that kind of goes along with Barbara's question that she wrote in the chat box. How often are you required to report? Is it every snowfall or every rainfall? And
every day. Okay, every day. And again, if it's nothing, 0. It's just not, it takes seconds to report it on your website. From Barbara to everyone, you're welcome.
and we have Joanne. She's participated on and off for years in Baltimore County, so that's great. Joanne, thank you.
We'll start participating some more, Barbara. Anybody else?
I had a question also about the dew. If the dew is collecting inside, if you go out there, I guess you just don't know if there's dew in your water or not.
Look at your car.
Okay.
And another thing about looking at your car, you walk out and there's nothing in the rain gauge, but your dirty windshield has raindrops on them. Okay? That's called trace. And like 2 drops is a trace. No precipitation is none. Okay? 0. And a completely unrelated article, which I'm fishing to do another one of these next fall, we had a somewhat colorless autumn this year. Because it's a long story, I'll make it real short. You have to have adequate summer rainfall to have pretty colors in the autumn, and we didn't. There were weeks that went by that we didn't have any rain. There's some other qualities we need for a pretty autumn, but I'll get into that if I ever do that slideshow.
I have a question.
Sure thing.
Okay, so in our backyard we have bird feeders and a small yard. Is it okay if
He just froze on me.
we put the rain gauge like near the bird feeders?
Well,
Oh,
try to get them as far away from everything.
okay. So,
The
like,
birds, I found the birds leave mine alone. Away from the, I got 6 bird feeders.
okay.
And well, I like birds. That's one of the things I taught ornithology back in the day. but try to keep it away from trees and try to keep it away from bird
Oh,
feeders. I mean, anything that might affect. So you got, if
you're
you deprive people
frozen.
of a bird feeder, the wind hits, is the bird feeder is going to move the water around. So the answer is try not to. Anybody else? Thank you for asking. Where do you go to school? Can I be nosy?
Yeah, I go to Youth Benefit Elementary School.
Yeah, and I
Go ahead, ma'am.
go to Falston Middle School.
All right. Our son went to Youth Benefit
Oh,
and Falston Middle and Falston High. And he's currently 31 years old and a PhD at Pitt, but that's another story. Kid was doomed. I taught science and my wife taught third grade. So when he was born, he had Dr. Seuss at one end of the crib and a periodic table at the other. So good luck at Falston and good luck at Youth Benefits. They're two excellent schools. Excellent schools.
thanks.
Thank you all for tuning in. I'm looking forward to hearing from you guys. See, if you sign up with Colorado, they'll send me a note and I'll send you a list. By the way, again, feel free to use my website to get that map because it's free.
Any other questions for Brad about CoCoRaHS? I'm so excited, except I'm not a morning person, so I don't like to wake up and have to get out there.
I don't get out. I get out there. See, I'll go to that map. If it rains and it's raining at 7, I don't get up at 7 o'clock. I spent 40 years getting up at 5 a.m. So somebody says, well, can you meet at 9? That's the middle of the night. I am retired. The deal here is I will look at the rain. I know enough about the maps where I can look at the rain map and go, well, okay, let's stop here. Boom. So I'll go out and I'll write down how much is there. And then I'll deduct an approximation of what came after 7. Does that make sense? And I don't have a problem going, it's 9 o'clock, right?
Mhm.
Weather Your Way was one of the, I can't read the rest.
So Joyce was asking where to order the rain gauge, and Brad said that Brad in his talk he gave 2 different places: Weather Your Way and the Ambient Weather.
Ambient weather.
Ambient.
Weather Your Way is generally, they're on sale now. Okay. Well, I've been here doing this so long, they used to be $20, now they're 50. What else, right? But they're on sale for Weather Your Way, I think for 38 and change. Okay. $38 and change.
Do you have any schools that sign up to be?
I have in the past, but it's tough because A, there's nobody at school on the weekends. B, excuse me, there's nobody at school in the summer. And C, there's nobody in school now. Another thing that I caution people who wanted to do it as a science project at school is some people have a fun idea that let's go to school and vandalize. Well, what's the first thing going to be vandalized? Well, I had one school that had a court that was surrounded and they put it out there. But again, once the unit ended, they stopped, but they had some fun and did it. But once again, you don't have anybody to read on the weekend.
But all data is important. So whether you do it
Absolutely.
for a little bit or a long, it all contributes to the greater understanding of our weather patterns.
You see that from W and M Meeks to everyone, 3275. Where is that? You know where?
Maybe that was that Weather Your Way.
This is the guy's name, I think.
Weather
Your Way. Okay, so the sale's even better. And one more time, I know I sound like a broken record, and I don't know how many people are old enough to remember that expression. If you got nothing, record 0. Okay, I'll get emails from the coordinator, one of the coordinators in Colorado. Brad, will you check out, Joe Blow's rain gauge? He put down 52 inches. So I'll email him. He meant to put 0.52. They look, go, hold it. Wait a minute. But it's fun. It's for the young people. It's very educational. Gets you involved. And again, if some people are outside the Hartford, Baltimore County area, feel free to email me. I'll answer any questions you have. Anybody having just general weather questions? Why aren't we getting any snow? Global warming. What brings us the best snowstorms? Miller bees. What's that?
Yeah. Oh, when will we get more snow?
Sometime. I'm sorry. It's okay. Here's what I got very involved in weather when I started teaching oceanography, because here we are, 80 air miles from an ocean. There are 4 things that affect weather in an area. Okay? Mountains, big cities, bodies of water, and oceans. Of those 4, how many do we have here in Maryland?
We only heard mountains.
All right, mountains, big cities, bodies of water, and oceans. Here in Maryland, how many of those do we have?
We have big cities and big bodies of water.
And oceans and mountains. We got them all.
Mountains.
We got them all. So there's a joke amongst meteorologists, both professional and amateur like myself. If you don't like the weather in Maryland, wait a minute. Okay? By the way, real quick, Miller A, Miller B. A Miller A storm tries to make it over the mountains and dumps all its snow in Deep Creek. Miller B comes across the country, sets up a new storm off of South Carolina and comes up north, and that's where we get whacked. Okay? Now, you guys are much too young. When our son was 6, we got over 3 feet of snow total in the blizzard of 96. Some of you folks are a little older, remember that very well. The fun thing for him was we live on a court, a circle. And so I actually got out there and directed traffic, the bulldozers, to shove all the snow into my front yard. So we had a 6-foot pile of snow. My son got the toboggan down for about a week till it rained and all melted. Any other weather questions?
Barbara wanted to know about the polar vortex. Could you explain that?
Yes. Polar vortex is something that the media came up with to describe what's known as an omega current. Omega like the letter omega. All right. Polar vortex is when very cold air comes down through the Midwest and then goes sometimes as far as the Gulf of Mexico and back up again. And it's bringing essentially very cold air from the Arctic. Okay. The thing with air, though, is cold air is dry air. We see more stars in the winter than we do in the summer because the air is drier. Why is it drier? Because it's colder. Why does the Miller A not give snow to Baltimore? Because it has to get up and go over the Appalachian Mountains, goes up, gets cold, and dumps all its snow at Wisp, which is great if you're skiing at Wisp, but not if you want to get out of school in Towson. Okay. Did I answer your question? Barbara, okay. Explain it. Yeah. Barbara, did that work?
She said, yeah.
Okay. Yes, I see.
Any other?
Oh, bless you.
Well, we hope to have Brad back and tap his resource and his expertise knowledge on some other subject matters. So stay tuned for that. I want to thank Brad for coming out and introducing us to CoCoRaHS. I hope that everybody's interested in becoming a volunteer with the program. Again, the more data, the better for everything.